Hey everyone, Sycra here, and in this lesson I wanted to cover form and maybe some exercises you could do to practice seeing form. And at first I was thinking maybe I would just do something that's a bit more clean and explain, visually how to take like a box and break it down and cut out shapes from it. But then I started thinking, no, I want to do something that's more accessible to people, more freehand, so that it's something you could actually apply right away. So first of all, I just want to talk about what is form. And form is, seeing 3D objects in a 2D space. So like this has no form, it's just a square. But now this has some form. And this is what you want to be able to get in your pictures, is this three-dimensional quality to things. And I'm purposely making lines where I kind of, go, instead of just doing this and make one line, I'm going over it a few times. And the reason I'm doing that, and here I'm just building a cylinder, is because I want to feel like I'm sculpting this form, and by lightly going over the lines over and over, it somehow feels more like I'm sculpting it. So this is one thing you can do, is to practice drawing cylinders and cubes. And with cubes and cylinders, something good is to actually draw through the form. And what that means is to imagine the object's transparent. So with this cube, for instance, if it was transparent, we would see the bottom, right? Like we would see through it. We'd see this side, this side, this side, this side. So that's fine, and this is important, but the way I learned form was by doing self-portraits. So I would do like a front view. Just going to simplify it. Let's say that's just the front view, right? And then I would look in the mirror and draw this. And I would draw again. I'd turn my head slightly, and I'd do the drawing again. And then I would turn my head slightly again, and I would do the drawing again. And somehow what happened is, in my head, see like the nose, for instance, this shape started to get built, and I could see it almost like a 3D shape. And then I was able to see things in 3 dimensions. But again, that took me many years, and so I'm thinking like there's gotta be an easier way to teach this. And so I was thinking of all these exercises that how could I teach this easier? And I think one way is this way, drawing through the forms. And let's say this is a cylinder, right? Turn this into a soup can or something. So let's imagine this is a can of soup. And again, I'm drawing through, and perspective is really important with form, but you don't have to do it right away. And I'm avoiding perspective just because I don't want to overload people who are starting out with too much information. So all this is isometric, and basically what isometric is that the parallel lines, like lines going, see these, this is parallel, this is parallel, this is parallel, this is parallel, they just remain parallel, they never meet. What perspective is when these lines meet to a common vanishing point. So anyway, here we have this soup, right? So just putting the label on it, and soup. So doing these types of things can help. And also cutting things. So let's say this is a cube, right? I'm going to pretend I'm cutting this off. So what I can do is making this line, I'm going to bring these lines parallel until they touch this point in the back, and that. So now if I erase this portion, it's like I just cut that cube, right? And doing these kind of things is going to help your brain start to see things 3-dimensionally. Okay, what else could you do? Let's say we have some cubes, right? Just gonna make some cubes, and gonna draw this thing, just 6 squares, and you might have made one of these. You just make it out of paper, and it's like that, and then you get flaps like on the sides. But anyway, you fold this and it'll turn into a cube, right? So what we could do is imagine that there are letters on this. Let's say there would be an A, and then you could think, okay, so what would that look like on this form? So let's say the A is here, okay? How about here, the A is on the top? So you could practice doing this so that you get a sense of like, okay, what does it look like in certain views? And let's say here we have a B. Okay, well, what does that look like on here? Well, that would be, oops, that would look like this, right? And what would that look like on this one? It would look like that. And we could put a C here. And then what would that be like? Well, that would be underneath here. So be like that. And on this one, it would be like that. And what would be here, right? So imagine it's folded. Well, it would be this. So whatever this is, let's say this is the D. And could put let's see, put the E here, and F, it's going to be upside down, right? So then when we think what's going to go here, well, it's going to be the D. It's going to look like that. So it's just another thing where it kind of forces you, it's a terrible D, sorry, but it forces you to think, you know, about form. And then something that I really think is important is whenever you draw a shape, don't just leave it like a circle, but try and find the center line, you know? So imagine there's a center line cutting through this object, and draw it so you draw it the whole way through. Something that was told to me is that when you draw a face, let's say the face is in 3/4. So eye lines here, right? You should be able to feel the ear on the other side of the face. And I don't know, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you really think about it, but I kind of like that because it does seem to work, how you can feel, or you should be able to feel it, and that means like you're gonna think more about this as a 3-dimensional form. For instance, what I could do is I could actually draw through it the same way we did this box, right? And the way I would do that is like, say we have this jaw, well, I could carry that over the same way I carried this point, right? You carry it over and then you go up. So you get this side of the object. What I could do is sort of trace out this, go back in space and find the jaw, and then go up, find this point where the ear would be on the opposite side. I mean, that's pretty messy. Not saying you need to do that, but it is something you could do. And that's all. This is just to get that sense of 3D space. The coil technique is pretty good as well for things like that, which is, if you're not familiar with it, it's where you just make coils so that things come towards you, right? You can go into the distance. And Another one is to do pretty much the same thing, but I like to use triangles. This is sort of how I imagine a snake. Try and think of, like, first I could just get the basic shape, and then I can imagine the body turning. And this comes around. This part comes around. And this comes around. So you could practice doing that. Something that was common in animation school was to draw like beanbag shapes. Just shapes like this. And you'll notice a lot of characters, especially in like Disney and things. Well, this is going to be a flour sack, but they're built on this type of shape. And what's important with this is just to get the side and the front, like get a center line. And as I said, that's really super important, is to get this center line, because it'll get you thinking of things not as just flat things. It's not like you're just drawing something and it's flat, where you can't really tell, you know, well, what's going on inside this. It's more, you know, you draw the center line, you can figure it out, you can determine what the volume of this is, you know. Okay, so this showed that this is pretty flat, but I could have done it differently. I could have done this and this, so it looks like, oh, that's kind of folded, or, you know, really bulged it out, and now that's a completely different form. So that's also something you can do, and especially with heads, when you're doing heads, that's why the crosshairs are so important. It's not so much like in the beginning it kind of is for proportions and getting guidelines, but later on it's much more about trying to see, like, well, what is this form doing? And it's going to require a lot of practice, but I think the best way to get that is to start doing this if you're not already doing this. Start feeling out the forms and imagining what things are doing, you know. And don't feel bad if you don't get it right away. But even like with this flour sack, if I can imagine seeing through it and like what part of it touches the ground, well, this part of it touches the ground. That's going to be important, because now it feels like, well, this is a solid thing, right? It's not just flat. Same with this. See, I've got this neck, but the neck comes from somewhere. Right now it's not really showing a form, but if I attach it to the body like this, and I can even go through the form on the back, so that's just whenever you go right through, right? Even though you don't see this line, that would be erased, you still draw through, and that's so that you get that feeling of the form. Then we feel more how this sits on the body, where if I didn't do any of that, and I just did, like even this, you can feel it somewhat, and that's because I already went through the work of doing it. But if I just do this, it starts to flatten out, right? It's hard to see, like, well, what's going on here. And then what people tend to do is sort of do this thing where they just focus on the outline too much, and you really lose a lot of information as to what's going on inside that. It just becomes this flat shape. And if you start with form, then it's okay. I mean, you can go back and then create these flat shapes. That's not a problem. But if you're not used to starting with form, then it can be tricky to know. And same thing like the center line, right? Let's get the center line in. So the nose is going to be somewhere around here. And then you can imagine, where does that center line go on the neck? Well, it's not just going to be here, right? That doesn't make any sense, because the neck goes, it's back. So we have to just use a different color. We have to follow this center line. Okay, we get to the chin, and actually the center line itself, it's going to be a bit more bumpy because we're going to follow the nose, go down, go up and down the mouth on the chin, and then we're going to go back in space, right? And then we go down the neck and maybe get a bump for the Adam's apple. Then we go down, and then we go up, and we come around. See? So now this has a lot more form to it. It's not just flat. This area, I mean, oh, this area. It's not flat. And the reason we know it's not flat is because this comes out like that. If I just went straight down, like this, suddenly this is all flat again, right? Because we're not feeling this sense of volume. And you can also practice sort of doing wireframe things where you go around the form, and you can create like old computer graphics, a wireframe mesh, things like that on how to tell form. Another important thing is, and it's something that I'm correcting myself from even this one, is see how at first I just drew the lines like that. That's not what you want to do. You want to go around. Go around. So, for instance, when I draw the cylinder, and let's say I want to draw that label, I don't just do this. That's not what you want to do. You don't want to be doing that. You want to go, first of all, it's fine to ghost it, to sort of make the movement without touching the cursor on the page yet. So just to make it clear, I'm going to draw what I'm ghosting. But I'm just doing this, but I'm not even touching the page normally. And then you can get that line. And usually actually just go the whole way through. But with practice, what you can do is learn to just grab onto it at a certain point. So you're sort of not touching at this point, but then just touching at all those points. And that's kind of how I do it. So what happens is just before the line touches the side, it's starting to go around this form. And that's really important, is to be able to get this feeling that the line is going behind this form, that there's objects in space, right? And that this occupies a space on the ground. So let's say this is a cylinder, right? Well, if I had something behind it, if you don't think like this, then maybe I just put that thing here and like that, right? And I'd say, oh, this is behind the cylinder. And what is this? Who knows? Maybe it's a box of some kind. Okay, so I've got a box behind this. But this doesn't work, because if you notice, if I was to draw through, this would be inside that cylinder. See? That part? That's overlapping. So to make that look realistic, what I'd have to do is move it back so it is occupying its own space, and that is not touching the cylinder space. So I don't know, I'm hoping this is helping. It is something difficult. It is something you need to practice a lot. But yeah, just, you know, doing lots of flour sacks is a good start as well. You know, do a flour sack, get the side, the front. Let's just say I'm doing a front view. What would that look like? And the reason this is such a good shape to use is because, hey, stick some legs and some arms and a head, and you've got sort of a torso, sort of. So it's like use for building a lot. I mean, the bean shape, super useful for building a lot of different shapes for a lot of different things. So same shape, stick on a nose, some eyes, right? Get the center line. You can build lots of different things with this shape. So yeah, that's the main thing, and practice doing cubes, all kinds of cubes. Again, don't worry if it's not in perspective, you know, don't worry about that just yet. You definitely worry about it later, but for now, just work on seeing three-dimensional things. And one thing that does help me a lot is to start my images with a ground plane, like even just doing something like this, where, yeah, it's perspective, but just having this makes it feel like, okay, let's say I did have a cylinder. Well, the cylinder takes up this much space, and you could have a square beside it. And see, I draw what's on the ground first, and then I build up. I noticed the perspective, so this is above the horizon, so we wouldn't see the top of it. And same with this. Cylinder would look like that, and this would be hidden behind. So we're getting a sense of things in three-dimensional space, right? So that's useful. And I actually use this a lot for figure drawing, where let's say there's a model and they're in a space. I'll think of, especially if they're sitting down, I'll think like, okay, so their butt is touching the ground here, and maybe their foot is touching here. I sort of build on top of that, so I have them in space now, see? And then I can bring the other leg behind. And it's okay to be messy. It's okay to do all this stuff. You're not trying to impress anybody. I think one of the most important things is, in the beginning anyway, is to really get over this thing of drawing as just something to create a pretty picture and to hang up on the wall. You're not doing that in the beginning. You're just, or you shouldn't be worried about that in the beginning. You should be worried much more about just practicing and getting a sense of things, and, you know, being very loose and building stuff. It's okay to be messy. It's okay to get things wrong. It's okay to draw through the form. Find the center line, imagine it going up behind, you know, things like this. Okay, so that's my little thing on form, and I hoped it helped, and thanks for watching.